You know Kevin Spacey?
Yes.
Also an Academy Award winner.
Yeah.
He does what I think is a pretty good impression of you.
Well, I don't.
Al Pacino doesn't flip tables or throw tantrums. He goes quiet. And when Pacino cuts you off, he cuts deep.
And it was downhill after that because nobody else wanted me. Paramount didn't want me or Brando.
For decades, Pacino's been the heartbeat of modern cinema. From Serpico to The Godfather, he's carried entire generations of storytelling on his shoulders. But behind the scenes, it wasn't always gold statues and curtain calls. He's walked away from directors, clashed with icons, and blacklisted co-stars quietly, permanently. He doesn't burn bridges, he buries them. Dog Day, Afternoon, Scent of a Woman, Heat. Pacino's performances aren't just intense, they're volcanic. But when the chemistry goes sour, that fire turns cold. And unlike some actors, Pacino doesn't do PR cleanups. If you made the list, you're not getting off it.
Connection, it was like overpowering me. I mean, it was so steady.
He starred with Dyro, Nicholson, Brando, and Walken. But not all of them made it through unscathed. Here are the 6 actors Pacino quietly froze out. Why they got dropped and why it was final. Stick around because the last name on this list, even the director refuses to talk about it. Number 1. William Friedkin. Al Pacino's first major directing partnership after the Godfather trilogy was with William Friedkin on Cruising 1980. A dark dive into New York's underground, but what began as creative synergy soon dissolved into professional contempt. Friedkin, fresh off The French Connection, expected Pacino to show up rehearsed, disciplined, ready. Instead of arriving prepared, Pacino showed up late, with only fragments of his lines memorized, leaning on improvisation that clashed with Friedkin's rigid precision. To the director, this wasn't creativity, it was chaos. Friedkin later branded him unprepared, even dismissive of the script. In a rare flash of frustration, he accused Pacino of treating the set like a college prank. Pacino, fiercely instinctive and uncompromising, bristled under Friedkin's authority. He rejected direction outright, insisting no one understood his character better than he did. According to crew members, Friedkin came close to firing him more than once. His later verdict was cutting. Pacino was the biggest disappointment I ever worked with. Those words echoed through the industry like a hammer strike. The set became a battlefield, late-night confrontations, explosive shouting matches, long stretches of icy silence. Pacino never yielded, but the cost was clear. He was exiled from Friedkin's orbit for good. Their paths never crossed again, on screen or off. Critics today tend to spotlight the film's raw, controversial edge, but the real story hides in the silences. No joint press runs, no celebratory reunions, no nods of acknowledgement when either man broke new ground. Pacino moved forward with younger filmmakers who valued freedom and instinct, while Friedkin turned his focus elsewhere. What remains is a single, cult-status film, haunted not just by its subject matter, but by the bitterness buried beneath it. In Hollywood, collaboration is the currency of survival. When respect breaks, so does the partnership. Friedkin's remark wasn't just criticism, it was judgment. And with Pacino, once you've crossed that line, there's no way back. William Friedkin learned that lesson the hard way. Number 2. James Foley. When Glengarry Glen Ross premiered, critics praised Pacino's work as razor-sharp, raw, and wound tight with intensity. But behind the lens, his partnership with director James Foley told a different story. Foley, known for his controlled visuals and strict discipline, quickly found Pacino's unpredictable rhythm overwhelming. Pacino would shift gears mid-scene, abandon scripted dialogue, and refuse to repeat a rehearsal the same way twice. For Foley, it was draining, a constant clash between his demand for order and Pacino's hunger for fire. One crew member later summed it up: Foley wanted tension. Pacino wanted flames. That push and pull nearly tore the set apart. The finished film was gripping, but the process left both men certain there wouldn't be a sequel to their collaboration. Unlike others who've openly sparred with Pacino, Foley kept his thoughts guarded. He never spoke ill of him publicly, but when asked if he'd direct Pacino again, his half-smile said more than words could. Some performances are best left as one-time lightning strikes. The silence that followed wasn't peace, it was distance. No reunions, no whispers of another project. Their partnership ended the moment the cameras stopped rolling. For Pacino, that's the way it's always been. If the rhythm is wrong, he doesn't fight to fix it, he simply moves on. Number 3. Marlon Brando. Landing the role of Michael Corleone in The Godfather transformed Pacino's career overnight. But it also set him across from Marlon Brando, a legend he admired yet quietly resented. On screen, their chemistry was seamless. Off-screen, it was anything but. Brando, already an institution in Hollywood, carried the weight to bend rules. If he arrived late to rehearsals, improvised lines, or butted heads with Francis Ford Coppola, the studio let it slide. Pacino, still a relative unknown, was given no such freedom. The double standard stung. That resentment deepened during award season. Brando claimed the Oscar for Best Actor, while Pacino, despite being the heartbeat of the film, was pushed into the supporting actor category. Feeling sidelined by Brando's spotlight, Pacino chose not to attend the Oscars that year. Years later, he admitted, "I didn't think it was right. I was in more of that film than he was." It wasn't just bitterness, it was a glimpse into a rivalry that never healed. The two men never reunited on screen. Pacino, though respectful in public, rarely spoke of Brando with genuine admiration. For someone who influenced his rise, Brando became less of a mentor and more of a shadow looming over his career. There was no outright hostility, but the disappointment lingered, an uneasy mix of envy, pride, and injustice that kept them apart. In Hollywood, feuds don't always play out in headlines. Sometimes the silence speaks louder. And in Pacino's silence, it was clear. He might have shared the frame with Brando, but he had no interest in walking the same path. Number 4. Robert De Niro. Al Pacino and Robert De Niro are often linked as twin titans of American cinema, men whose names became shorthand for an entire era of storytelling. They've stood side by side in The Godfather Part 2, Heat, Righteous Kill, and The Irishman. But beneath the surface, their partnership has always been more complicated than the posters suggest. When Heat began production in the mid-90s, anticipation soared. It would be the first time the two icons shared a face-to-face scene. But off-camera, the reality was cooler. Insiders say they barely interacted outside of takes. De Niro thrived on quiet preparation and discipline. Pacino thrived on spontaneity and fire. Director Michael Mann had to juggle their opposing methods, shaping his direction to accommodate two different storms converging on the same screen. Pacino once described it simply, "Bob's a craftsman. I'm more instinct." Not an insult, but not glowing praise either. That quiet divide followed them years later into The Irishman. Both men delivered layered, haunting performances, but those close to the set described an atmosphere of restraint rather than camaraderie. There were no jokes between takes, no warmth once the cameras stopped. Scorsese himself often played mediator. In interviews, their exchanges felt formal, rehearsed. Pacino referred to De Niro as a colleague. De Niro, when asked about Pacino, answered with a flat, "He's good at what he does." In Hollywood, rivalries come in two forms, the ones that explode in public, and the ones buried under professionalism. With Pacino and De Niro, the silence has always told the real story. With Pacino and De Niro, it was never fireworks, just decades of distance where a friendship might have been. Pacino once summed it up bluntly, "We're not friends. We just show up." Not bitterness, just the quiet truth behind one of Hollywood's most celebrated yet disconnected pairings. Number 5. Michelle Pfeiffer. When Scarface was being cast in the early 1980s, Michelle Pfeiffer was far from a safe bet. She was young, largely unknown, with only a few minor credits to her name. Pacino, by then already a powerhouse, wasn't shy about voicing his doubts. He resisted the idea of Pfeiffer as Elvira Hancock. According to reports, Pacino told producers she was too delicate, lacking the steel needed to portray Tony Montana's guarded, icy partner. Pfeiffer herself later admitted she felt his disapproval in the audition room. "I knew he didn't want me there. I had to prove I belonged. And she did. Her reading was so sharp that director Brian De Palma pushed her into the role, overriding Pacino's reluctance. But the chill never thawed. On set, Pacino kept his distance. No camaraderie, no warm-up banter, just cold professionalism. Even after Scarface became a cult monument, Pacino seldom mentioned Pfeiffer in interviews. Pfeiffer, though respectful, never denied the strain. Ironically, it was Pfeiffer's performance that added the vulnerability and tragedy the film needed. Her Elvira was brittle, sharp, and unforgettable. But Pacino's resistance left its mark. They never reunited on screen. Hollywood thrives on second acts, but this partnership never got one. With Pacino, once the line is drawn, it's final. Number 6. Gene Hackman. Pacino and Gene Hackman only shared the screen once, in Scarecrow, 1973. But that single project was enough to create years of quiet distance. The film was hailed by critics, their stripped-down performances praised for raw humanity. But behind the camera, it was another story. Pacino was still climbing, a young actor driven by sensitivity and method. Hackman, riding high from the French Connection, was already established, blunt, and no-nonsense. From the outset, their energies clashed. Pacino sought depth and exploration. Hackman prized efficiency and grit. The result was a constant friction, two different philosophies grinding against each other. The movie succeeded, but their working relationship did not. They never paired up again. In a career full of legendary collaborations, Scarecrow stands as the exception, a great film born from a partnership that both men quietly chose never to repeat. When you look back at Al Pacino's career, the spotlight often shines on the unforgettable roles. The quiet intensity of Michael Corleone, the raw fire of Tony Montana, the volcanic eruptions in Dog Day Afternoon or Scent of a Woman. But behind those performances is a man who guarded his instincts as fiercely as his characters guarded their secrets. These 6 names, Friedkin, Foley, Brando, De Niro, Pfeiffer, Hackman, tell a story that rarely makes the headlines. A story not of scandals or public outbursts, but of silence, distance, and choices. Pacino never needed to air grievances or stage public feuds. He understood something far more powerful. In Hollywood, absence can speak louder than any argument. Each fallout followed the same rhythm. Friction on set, philosophies that clashed, egos that couldn't align. But instead of dragging it into the spotlight, Pacino simply closed the door and kept walking. And in doing so, he left a trail of legendary films paired with relationships that ended as quickly as they began. That's the paradox of Pacino. On screen, he is all fire, improvising, exploding, transforming into characters that sear themselves into history. Off-screen, he is cold calculation. He doesn't burn bridges in flames, he buries them in silence. You won't hear the argument. You'll just notice the absence. In an industry built on reunions, comebacks, and second chances, Pacino's refusal to circle back is what sets him apart. His legacy is not only the characters he played, but the people he chose not to play with again. And maybe that's the real lesson. Greatness isn't just about the performances that define you, it's also about the instincts that protect you. Al Pacino didn't just shape modern cinema with his roles. He shaped it with his silences. And that, more than any award, is what makes his legend untouchable. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more untold stories behind Hollywood's brightest stars, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you never miss the next spotlight.